I'm very honored to have been asked to take part in a discussion with such a distinguished economist. And I especially appreciate it because he deservedly was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2008 for creating the new international trade theory and the new economic geography, which I've taught, with his Krugman and Obstfeld international trade text, which I think was a great text. And also, he had lots to say about the speed of international crises. And he was, I wouldn't say, as a Eurosceptic, I think some of the arguments that he uses on the euro are ones that resonate with me. Now, the trouble with what we've just heard and what in general we have in the book I've read very carefully is that often Nobel Prize winners are tempted to pontificate on matters that are outside the speciality in which they have excelled. And they have this mantle of authority whereby whatever they say, whether it's sensible or perhaps a bit outre, is accepted with resignation from some and enthusiasm by others. Now, we've just heard Professor Krugman say something about the euro and the situation of the euro today and the solutions. And I thought what he said was intelligent, practical, but exactly what usually is the case with the economists of this kind, which is they got us into this mess, and now we have to sacrifice our principles so that they can get out of this mess. So we thought the euro was badly set up, that the euro had some rules that had to be obeyed, rules that are similar to those of the gold standard, but they were not obeyed. And we said so if they did that. And also the euro was used as a political banner. It was meant to unite us. My goodness, the job is not very well done. And so now we have the euro in a situation which is bad. And we ask the Germans, who know what it means to have an inflation, who know what it means to keep by their contracts, to keep by the law. We're asking the Germans, please give us a little leeway. Please have a little inflation. We can't do what we ought to do. We didn't do what we ought to do. And now if you can help us and mess up your situation a little bit, then we can go along chugging with this money that we've invented. And this is what I felt in the book. It's, again, a book that sees the situation, describes it, doesn't go into the causes, and the causes are from those are to be blamed. The people to be blamed are the people who said the right thing, who said how we should organize a free society and how we should organize a society with a free market. And so, in the end, we have to carry the can, and this is what is happening with the Germans today. Now, when you go into his book, and I've read it carefully, it's a very well-written book, full of ingenious phrases, and I think one that puts his case in a way that is difficult to fight. When I read his book, I saw that he has one thesis. It's all a question of demand. Why is unemployment so high and economic production so low, he says? Because we are not spending sufficiently. When we all retrench at the same time, the economy stalls or contracts. My spending is your income is my spending. Therefore, in a recession, we need somebody to spend, and that somebody is who? The government. So it's true that he's looking at the surface and looking at the short term. In the short term, we're all dead, said Keynes, and he quotes it. And Krugman is, it seems, interested only in the short-run economic growth, achieved by redeploying resources that are somehow, we don't know why, who did it, somehow made idle by in this depression, which is inexplicable. And what we have to do is to put them back to work in whatever way, with whatever fashion, inflation, no inflation, put them back to work, and then there won't be this curse of unemployment, which indeed is a curse. But again, it's not my fault, and not the fault of our school, it's the fault of other people who, well, I don't want to go into that because we've discussed it into Spain to entireness. Now, my main criticism is, since aggregate demand expansion got us here, and it got us here by having too low interest rates, And those low interest rates were demanded by France and Germany, by Germany when they were uniting the country, by France because they're always asking for something which is not right. And they said, we want lower interest rates, and that meant that we in Spain had too low interest rates. So what inflated the bubble would, according to Krugman and other economists like him, and there'll be more here, I'm sure, what inflated the bubble is going to remedy the blowout. We first inflate the bubble with an inflationary policy, then it bursts, we have unemployment, and then we go back to the inflationary policy. And what kind of science is this? It's homeopathic medicine of the worst kind. Your ailment comes from excessive demand, and you use excessive demand to cure your ailments. And I think one should go deeper into economic theory to know how to organize our world. Now, good theory says something different about sustainable growth. It comes from the supply side of the economy, not the demand side of the economy. In the short run, confidence must be built and funds must be freed from the use by the public sector, who very often is not very productive. Those funds must be freed so that they go from the bureaucratic use to a productive use. And in the long run, growth comes from increased resources, and especially from good institutions and new knowledge. All these sources of growth, short and long, need individuals to set aside savings. Saving is good. Saving is good, and not the kind of thing that's presented by Keynes and by Krugman as some sort of a mistake, because when you save too much, then the whole thing sinks. Savings, and entrepreneurs and firms will invest them, and with the help of a solid currency, banks and capital markets will intermediate. Now, this is the model we want to go to, and we don't need central banks who bring their interest rates low when there was a boom, and they've done that. They did that from 82 on, but certainly from 2001 on, and their interest rates are so low that we in Spain thought that money was there for the having, and we spent too much on the wrong things. So expanding aggregate demand only works in the short run when wages and prices are rigid. It's true that Professor Krugman has said that our wages and prices are rigid, and it is so. Very difficult to make them flexible. So there's a period of pain. We didn't want this period of pain if we had done something else, but there you are. So now we want to see, perhaps we need some kind of help in the sort he's described, but what we mainly need is to go to the bottom of the affair. How to create a free society with a well-functioning market where savings are not a mistake or a sin, and where savings are passed on to people who invest them, and there's new knowledge and there's real growth. So I was going to say something about the Great Depression of '29, which is not, I think, well described in the book. But I want to go to a number of cases, because it's very well to put forward principles. And we love principles. It makes for good coffee talk shop and coffee shop talk. And it's good, but we need some observations. We need some facts to see perhaps whether one principle is wrong and one principle is right. And I'll look at Japan, which is a country that Professor Krugman has studied in great detail. And I've read with interest what he had to say on Japan, even if I didn't agree on everything. Now, the post-World War II miracle came to a halt in 1991-92, and I remember it well. There was a time when the land of the Imperial Palace was worth more than the land of the whole of New York, because the bubble was so big. So in 1991-92, it just stopped. There was a fall in property prices. The stock exchange fell, and then what did Japan do? Well, what they did is they tried to have inflation. They couldn't do it for reasons that are technical, but what they did do is to have debt and public expenditure and public works, the whole gamut of Keynesian solutions was used there. The result, 20 years of no growth, or very slow growth. After running a 2.4% budget surplus in 91, 2.4 surplus, in 1996 it was minus a deficit of 4.3. in 1998, a 10% deficit. And then the rate of national debt to GDP now is above 230% of GDP, 230% of GDP, more than twice it is. And Japan is still not getting into the kind of growth that we expect from that very ingenious people. They carried about these structural reforms. They didn't face what they had to do with the banks. And Japan is very much a place where the state spends, gets indebted, and doesn't grow. Then the US is not something I'm going to stop on. It's in the book. The book is really so interesting, you can't stop reading it. It's good to read a book you don't agree with that keeps you awake at night, but this is very well written. And what Professor Krugman says about the US, I needn't say much more than, how is the year? I'll finish. How's the year? I'm going to be the solitary man. Yeah. How's the US doing? Well, not very well. And then to finish, speak about the story in Spain. On July the 4th, 2007, the Spanish government started giving out baby checks of 500 euros to every new mother. That was 1.2 billion expenditure. January 26, 2008, bang in the middle of the electoral campaign, by the way, Zapatero returned to all income taxpayers, even me, 400 euros at a cost of 5 billion euros. This sum was equivalent to 1/4 of the budget surplus accumulated before. July the 2nd, 2008, President Zapatero launched a municipal investment fund, the Plan E for Spain, 11 billion. Then it became Sustainable Economy Plan, with another 9 billion added to it, including 2,250 euros for each young man of 20 or lady of 22 to 30 if they wanted to leave home and rent a flat. The total of this anti-crisis expenditure was 34 billion. What happened to the Spanish economy under Mr. Zapatero? I needn't go into it. So the question is, if you want to run a deficit, public finance is a problem. That's a discovery. We never spoke about public finance, did we? Now, we need to borrow, and the lenders don't want to give it to us because they don't. So what we have to do is to have Germany start helping us so that they get in a mess too. The better way to bring your treasury and welfare state in line, I think, is realistic finance, ethical politics, and a policy that Professor Krugman might criticize for being too conservative. Thank you very much.